Hello! Today I want to correct a common misconception about pebbles. Now, many people put pebbles at the bottom of pots the way they learned from YouTube. Normally when you put pebbles at the bottom of pots, the pebbles end up blocking the drainage holes at the base of the pot. Of course, this is a very wrong thing to do. And when you water the plant from above, all the roots of the flower at the bottom of your pot are constantly touching those pebbles. Now, you must have noticed on the seashore, in many places on those rocks or on some stones, their surfaces get covered with moss, especially the parts that don't get sunlight become covered with moss. Bacteria grew on their surfaces. The same thing happens in the pot as well. Now, when you water your plant from above, the top part of your plant dries out, of course. The soil dries out after a while, but the roots underneath stay constantly wet. Because these pebbles don't dry out, they always stay wet. And since they remain wet all the time, bacteria start to grow on them. And of course, these bacteria need food to survive, so they start eating the plant's roots or damaging the plant. That's why you absolutely shouldn't use pebbles. Now, when you look at pots, you'll see that they have their own specific design. In other words, these pots aren't produced in an ordinary way. These are designed by architects. There is a balance in this pot. That is, when we put soil inside, a special balance has been set in this pot to retain moisture. The pot has specific dimensions and the holes at the bottom are made accordingly. Therefore, you shouldn't disrupt this pot and put pebbles inside. You must not do that. If pebbles were actually necessary, the factories that produce pots would give you some pebbles along with the pot. But you absolutely should not use these pebbles with plants. Now, I actually know that many people try different methods to make their plants grow better, be much healthier, and bloom abundantly. But none of this is necessary. Because you don't need to make new discoveries to grow good plants or plants that bloom profusely. Now, when you plant your plant in a pot, the very first and most important issue for a plant is the pot itself. Choosing the right pot is extremely important. I always talk about where the plants come from in my videos because there is a direct connection between the plant's DNA, that is its place of origin, and the pot. Now, take a banana tree, for example. It's a tropical plant. You can't grow it the same way you would grow an African violet. The violet is a plant that was born and raised in England. Therefore, the DNA of these two plants is different from each other. And unfortunately, for many plants, growing them in plastic pots is the most suitable option. I haven't found a better material. Except for a few plants, ceramic pots are definitely not suitable for growing flowers. First, you need the right pot. After you get the right pot, which, as I said, is plastic in 90% of cases, and after you choose a pot with plenty of drainage holes at the bottom, if you put in some nice fresh soil and plant your flower, your plant will start to live healthily from then on. Never forget this. Every plant has a lifespan. In other words, no plant is eternal. Every plant has a lifespan. And when you make mistakes, the plant ages faster. Because with the mistakes you make, or the mistakes we all make, the plant is just trying to survive. But with the right pot and the right soil, you can ensure your plant lives properly. After that, of course, the plant goes into winter dormancy. In winter, all plants are preparing for summer. That is, during winter, they produce new cells to ensure the continuation of their species. So when winter comes, don't worry at all if your plant isn't growing. Just set your plant aside and absolutely do not try to propagate it by cutting its branches or leaves. Because when the plant is ready, it will grow, develop, and propagate on its own anyway. So the plant definitely doesn't need us to propagate it. And then right at the end of winter, in the spring, the flower will start sprouting again on its own. It will start to produce new branches. But of course, as I said before, if you plant a tiny plant in a huge pot, it still won't grow. Because plants first fill the inside of the pot with their roots. There's a reason why they do this. They're basically saying, let me fill this pot thoroughly with my own roots so that no other plant can settle here. With exactly this mindset, they first fill the entire pot with their roots, then they start producing new branches and new leaves, becoming stronger, and after that, starting from spring, they begin to observe their surroundings. Are there any insects? Is there wind? Is there enough sunlight? And is there a bee? And when they find these, they start spreading all their pollen to continue their lineage. That's when they bloom. So if you think this way and care for your flower, your plant, in this manner, rest assured, your plant will live a very long life. It will have a very long life. If you have any comments or thoughts on this topic, feel free to write them. See you in the next video. Goodbye.